took an international Islamic University, Malaysia. His first degree was in Arabic language and literature from University Al-Azhar. Currently, he is the manager of Darul Hufaz Learning Center and Darul Hufaz Learning Center and the director of Sharia Consultancy. Darul Hufaz provides tahfiz and Islamic education, and as Sharia consultant, he offers services in Islamic inheritance, estate planning like Hiba, Rukba, Nuzria, and also organize some talks with regard to marriage guidance courses. And Ustad, the objective for today's talk by Ustad Firdaus would be is to assist parents be their children's first main teacher in guiding and monitoring their children learning, especially in the so-called academic sciences, so that they are able to correctly align such learning from Islamic perspective and not to be confused into thinking that Islam and science are not compatible. So this is a very good forum. I think it's not only going to benefit the parents as well, but also the teachers who are here attending, because I believe as well as my personal belief is that individual subject should not be taken in isolation, and this is the part that we hope to integrate. Let's say when we learn science, to integrate some of the element of Islamic perspective into it. And if we learn English, if we learn Malay or Arabic, there should be some Islamic perspective over to it. So without further ado, and before we begin, before I call Ustaz Firdaus to give us this sharing, to start off the sharing session, let us begin this session with the recitation of Al-Fatiha, in hope that with Allah blessing, that the forum will run smoothly, in hope that we, all of us in this theatre, will benefit greatly from this sharing session by Ustaz Firdaus Yahir. Ila harati Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Fatiha. Okay, Ustaz Firdaus, silakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Respected Cikgu Mahmun, Chairman of the Madrasah Al-Ma'arif Al-Islamiyah, respected parents of students here, Alhamdulillah, this afternoon we are gathered here in this theatre for us to share together some aspect of this so-called subject that seems to mesmerize some people, and also cause the other side, on the other side of the hand, cause some people to be put off by that subject. Now that subject is called science, right? Science always evokes something that is magical in certain people, and science also evokes certain fear and also derision from other people. Okay, this afternoon I'm going to deliver in English because there are parents who cannot understand Malay. So, okay, and my slides will be in English, inshallah. Now, when we talk about, before I go into science proper, right, let's see what Al-Quran asks us to do. Okay, now I'm going to share with you just two verses of the Quran. There are many other verses of the Quran, just two verses of the Quran that tell us, right, with respect to our life here on this earth, besides worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, besides prayer and other religious obligations, what we should do, how should we conduct our life here. Now, if you look at this first verse, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ankabut verse 20, and He says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Qul siru fil ard. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, travel through the earth. Now this is something that is being encouraged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not wajib, it's not compulsory, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages us to travel on this earth. And for what should we travel on this earth? Should we just go for a vacation from one country to another, just for the sake of seeing new things? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this verse the objectives of our traveling. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to travel on this earth is to what? To see, to contemplate, to observe how Allah originated creation. Kaifa bada al-khalq. Fanzuru kaifa bada al-khalq. That's the objective. That is the first objective of any of our travel. Besides traveling to the three grand mosques, Masjid Haram, Masjid Nabawi, Masjid Al-Aqsa, where the traveling there is being encouraged by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But traveling other places, why we travel is not just for us to take a vacation, right? But the main objective, the primary objective, is for us to see the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, not to go for shopping, that's secondary. Of course, there's a must for Singaporean, right? No shopping, then anything we go. People wicked man. Whatever it is, right? Now, the first thing is to travel and see the creation of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions specifically one part of that observation, and that is to see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala originate creation. What does originate creation mean? Originate creation means to discover how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created things. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created trees, mountains, rivers, seas, lakes, and whatever there is, animals. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala organized this planet Earth. Such harmony. There is such a delicate ecosystem that governs life on this planet Earth. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all these things? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to travel and see. And if we can't travel, none of us have the privilege to travel on this planet Earth, because of course traveling you need to have resources, time, this and that, energy and so forth. But nowadays, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us plenty of opportunity to be an armchair traveler. We don't have to go and take aeroplane, of course that's much better, right? But if we can't do it, then we can be an armchair traveler. There's no problem with that. We can just sit on our chair, comfortable chair, in our comfortable house and switch on the computer or switch on the television, right? And we can watch DVDs, we can watch YouTube channels on the creation of Allah. There is this wonderful BBC series that's called The Blue Earth, or the Planet Earth, and where the director or the producer of that show, right, shared with us the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creation. From the deepest of the ocean to the highest of the mountains, there are creatures living there. Creatures that sometimes amaze us. See, sometimes we thought that this creature cannot exist, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creativity in creating all these things, all these creatures, right? For example, in the deepest of the ocean, there is this one, they call it worm, right? It's about 1 meter long. I mean, for lacking of another word, we call it just a worm, or maybe a snake is not the correct term for it. It's a worm. It's about 1 meter long. But this worm live in hot vents under the sea. You know, in deep sea ocean, right, under the sea, on the seabed, right, there are certain places where hot water will just pour out from there. It will be sucked from the ocean, go inside the under the seabed, and then because there are lava under the seabed, so this water will be boiled to reach temperature higher than 100 degrees Celsius. But because of so much pressure from the water, is so deep, about 2-3 kilometers, maybe 4 kilometers under the sea, and then because it becomes so hot, but the pressure is so high, that water cannot change into steam, so it becomes a superheated water, 100 degrees, more than 100 degrees Celsius. So then it will go out of those vents and then go out to the sea. So when this thing goes up the water, it carries together nutrients. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created ecosystems under the sea without any sunlight, but animals can still survive. Right? The energy that they derive from these hot vents. So there are what you call it, bacteria that thrive on sulfur, on hot water, and then this worm will come. And this worm have been observed to eat some of the bacteria that thrive on the hot vents. Now the amazing thing is that part of the body of this worm, because it's so long, right? Part of the body is inside that vent and it's more than 100 degrees Celsius, and yet the body can withstand that high temperature, that superheated water. And another part of the body, the tail part, the end part of the body, is inside that cold water. And let me tell you, if it's under the sea, right, very deep sea, the temperature of that water, the seabed, can be just as low as, okay, see, as high as 5 degrees Celsius, 4 degrees Celsius. So imagine the temperature difference of that worm. One end is about 4 degrees Celsius, right? It's very, very cold. And the other end is 100, let's say put it 100 degrees Celsius. So you have a temperature difference, a gradient from one end to another of more than 90 degrees. Now, no creature on earth can survive such a huge temperature gradient. Imagine you put your head inside a freezer and your leg on the stove, and you heat that stove, right? You cannot survive. Nobody can survive, right? But this worm Allah created can survive in such harsh condition with such huge temperature gradient. So that's the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to see, right? Discover. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a lot of opportunities to discover. We don't have to travel and dive into the deeper sea and see all those corals, beautiful corals. We can just open up. And then now we have Google's, right? Google Earth. If you have that software, or maybe you have it on your handphone, right? You don't have to go to some place. You just can just go to that place without being physically present there, and you can see things around you. Of course, it may not be the same as you being there, of course, physically, right? There will be more interactive and immersive experience, but at least you know what's going on in this world. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to travel and see how Allah originated creation. But just observing things doesn't really instill in us the feeling of awe in Allah's creations. We need to learn. We need to discover. Right? And how to discover that? We need to have some knowledge. And that is the knowledge that we need to have if we want to really appreciate, if we want to really immerse ourselves in Allah's greatness, in Allah's beauty, in the beauty of His creations, in all this earth, whatever that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created on this earth, and also up there in the universe. So this one verse. Another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extols us, commands us, encourages us greatly to what? To look at the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just on this earth, because that previous verse talk about we walking on this planet earth, traveling and discovering things. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about malakutis samawati wal ard, the kingdom of the heavens and the earth. Awalam yanzuru, do they not look? We don't have to travel because we cannot travel to outer space. We do not have the ability, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word awalam yanzuru, do not look. Now how to look? Not just looking, but the word yanzuru here conveys a meaning more than just look. It means to discover, to think, contemplate, right? To find out the origin of things, how things work. And that's what it can encapsulate the word yanzuru. Awalam yanzuru, do not look, do not contemplate, do they not think at the kingdom of the heavens and the earth? Fi malakuti samawati wal ard. وَمَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. And whatever things Allah has created, up there and here, and under the earth, and everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, do they not think and see and look? And if people really think, contemplate, right, and think rationally, then they surely will reach to one conclusion, that this thing, all this creation of Allah, all this space, universe, whatever it is, it cannot come by chance. There must be a creator. And this is basically the conclusion that has been reached by physicists, astrophysicists, scientists. I'm not talking just common scientists, but those who involved in discovering, in researching about the creation of the universe. And they found out that, look, this universe cannot come by chance. Why? Because there are too many coincidences. It is as if that this universe, for them, and this is one of the words of the so-called the atheists, scientists, physicists, and so forth. They said it is as if this universe is deliberately designed for us to live in, for us to survive. Deliberately designed so that there are planets, there are stars, there are human beings. Everything has been planned properly, and the universe is so fine-tuned that if there is a discrepancy of just 0.0001% on, for example, the ratio of proton and also the neutron, if there is just a discrepancy of 0.0001 to that precision, then there will be no atom. Everything will fly apart. The protons will fly apart. So there will be no atoms. And when there is no atom, there will be no matter. When there's no matter, there will be no sun, stars, galaxies, human beings, planets, and so forth. Nothing can exist. It will be just a sea of electrons and protons. It's so fine-tuned, and that's why the scientists, the physicists said, this universe is deliberately designed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown people at this age, with this knowledge that people have reached that level of knowledge, to see that, yes, there must be a creator. And that's the wonderful thing about studying physics, right? If you study physics and you read about the creation of the universe, and then you look at the how this universe was designed, to the extent that the scientists coined a term to label this universe that we are living in, and that term is what they call it. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Okay, the word just anthropic universe. It's called anthropic universe. Anthropic, anthropic universe. Anthropic universe means the universe designed for human beings to live. Anthropology is what the study of human beings. So anthropic universe means that this universe has been deliberately designed for us to live and to observe. Without us observing, there is one, they call it high level physics, they call it quantum physics. In this field of quantum physics, right, there is this conclusion that if there is no observer to this universe, then the universe will not exist. If there's no observer in this universe, now this universe will not exist. That is part and parcel of conclusion of quantum physics. Now, it is an arcane physics, whatever it is. But the conclusion is very clear. We need an observer for this universe to exist. Without an observer, quantum physics said this universe cannot exist. But this universe exists. So there must be the observer, an observer or observers. Now, who are the observers? The scientists said, we are the observers. We observe the universe, and that's why this universe exists. But we Muslims, we reach to a higher conclusion. And we say that the observers are not us, but the observer is Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is observing this universe, and by the equations of quantum mechanics, this universe must exist. Without that observer, without that observation, this universe does not exist. So if you want to know about quantum physics, then you have to Google up and read up about quantum physics. It's really a very strange science of physics. It's covered by scientists in the early 20th century. Even Even Albert Einstein, when told about quantum physics, and he knew about quantum physics, he knew the mathematics about quantum physics, and the equations of quantum physics are, the scientists say it's a foot long. It's very long, the equation. Even Albert Einstein said this is a very wild thing. He cannot accept it. But quantum physics is not something that is just speculation of mathematicians and physicists, right? It is a real thing that's been proven to be true. And how it must be true? We see its application in everyday life. I'm using this clicker, and this clicker there is a laser pointer. Now, how laser can exist? How reproduce lasers? Through the equations of quantum physics. Without quantum physics equations, you can't have lasers. Without quantum physics equations, you can't have internet. Now, internet all moves through fiber optics, and that's using lasers, light, right? Light carrying information. That's using quantum physics. So quantum physics is not just wild speculation. It is a proven thing. So Allah SWT said, go look and discover the kingdoms of the heaven and earth. And surely you will find out that Allah SWT exists. There must be a creator. Not just creators, but one creator. Because quantum physics dictates and necessitates that the observer for this universe must be one. If there are two observers, then this universe will not exist. As simple as that. Because the two observers will compete whether this universe they want to see or they don't want to see. So it's a little bit complex, but quantum physics say that there must be at least one observer. And if they say we are the observers, we are considered as one observers because we are looking everything at this world. Whatever it is. Now, you can ask, if the scientists know this fact, why can't they be believers? Why can't they just believe and be Muslim? Now, being Muslim is another thing. That is a religion. No, sorry, that is a faith. Right? The way of life. Now, believe in an entity that designed this universe is another thing. We start with believing in God. And all religion believe, except for Buddhism, all religion believe in God or gods. Right? That supernatural being or beings that created everything or this or that, control this and that. That is in the form of theology and comparative religion. We're not going to go into that. Right? So these scientists, being scientists, and science dictates that they must have conclusion that must tally with their five senses. Anything that cannot be experimented upon, anything that cannot be measured is beyond science. So for them, whether God exists or not, it is not their problem. For them, whatever empirical data that's been given to them that they found, it shows that there must be an observer there, or this universe is deliberately designed for people to live in, for us to live in. Now, how is it deliberately designed? And then if you approach a scientist and say, well, God designed it. And the scientist will say, okay, no problem, I have no problem with that conclusion. Right? You want to believe, you can believe it, because it's your personal right. But under science, because we cannot measure God, we cannot observe God directly, so science cannot prove whether God exists or not. That's the scientist's conclusion. So sometimes scientists are spiritual people. They know that this universe is designed, but who designed it? Allah SWT has not given them that hidayah, that guidance, so they cannot go to the next step, the next rung of ladder to believe that yes, there is one God. And if you go to another higher rung, then you know that there's one God is the God that is being believed by the Muslims. So there are steps to be taken. The scientists know that there must be an entity to this planet, to this universe that control and design it, but they have not taken the next step to believe that entity is God, and what more to take another step higher to become a Muslim. That is the work of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Innaka la tahdi man ahbabta walakin Allah yahdi man yasha. You do not give guidance to those who you love, but Allah is the one who is giving guidance to whomever that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala wishes. So that is the verse of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So now we have two verses. There are many other verses in the Quran. If you open up the Quran, you can see many verses of the Quran that ask us, right, that encourage us to observe. Observe the stars. Observe the trees. Observe yourself. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. And inside yourself. Have you not seen it? This is the beauty of Allah's creation in us. How our heart beats. How the cell inside our body controls us. The DNA in our body. How our brain ticks. How we can think. What is that nerve that carry the electrons that pulsate through our body? How is it that we can feel pain, right, almost simultaneously when somebody prick us at the toe, and then suddenly our brain can register that pain? How do we control breathing? All these things are the beauty of Allah SWT in our body. How Allah SWT designed us to such extent that this blood itself has its own cleaning mechanism. At every moment, there are millions of red blood cells being washed away and replaced with new cells, because red blood cells will always die. Cells die and be replaced with others. Only one cell dies and never be replaced, and that is our neurons, the cells of the brain. One is gone, and we have been given a set of number of neurons when we came to this planet Earth. We've been born to this planet Earth. There are a set number of neurons. Then after that, neurons will die. And as we grow older, more and more neurons will die. And they have discovered that at the age of when we reach puberty, half of our neurons are gone. Half gone, dead. Only half remain. And that's why it's very difficult as you grow older to learn new language. For children, babies, they can pick up any language that they want. If the mother wants to speak in Swahili, of course the kid is speaking Swahili, right? You know what Swahili is? Right? The clicking language in Africa, maybe, right? So the brain is plastic, is flexible, right? Even though half of our neurons are gone, as we grow older, more and more neurons gone. If you reach the age of 60, 70, 80, maybe 25% of your neurons, maybe 10% of your neurons that you were given when you were born on this planet Earth, right? 90% gone, but you can still function, you can still think. In fact, you become more brilliant. In fact, you can dictate, or you can predict what will happen. You have more wisdom. So how do you fit all this information? It's because Allah SWT compensates our brain, the missing neurons, with more, they call it relationship between two neurons, because neurons can grow tendrils and tie in with other neurons. The connection between the neurons. That's how people can think and can be more brilliant as they would have more wisdom and so forth. And inside yourself, don't you see? So everything Allah SWT has created on this, Allah SWT wants us to see. And Quran is full of those verses. In fact, some scholars of the Quran, right, said that one-sixth of the Quran, the verses of the Quran, talks about Allah's creations. 1/6. Now, how many verses? 1/6 of the Quran. How many verses? 1/6 of the Quran is. How many verses are there in the Quran in the first place? Then can divide by 6 easily. Anyone? Some people said, oh, the verses of the Quran is 6666. 6,666. No. In fact, that is a mischievous way, or some people mischievously created those numbers. Because 6666 is for the Christians, is satanic number. Number of verses in the Quran is not 6666, but 6236. 6,236. That is the Quran that we are reading right now, the Musaf that's been printed. But of course, other Qira'at, recitation, right, have a different number of ayat, which the scholar said, this ayat jointed, this ayat is not jointed, and so forth. So some Musaf have a different number. But it's all between 6,225 to 6,335. So you have a difference of, let's say, 10 to 11 verses that's being disputed by the scholars, whether this is a complete sentence or verse or not. So whatever it is, it's around 6,000. Let's put it at 6,000. So 1/6 of 6,000 is equals to 1,000. Imagine 1,000 verses in the Quran talks about Allah's creations. That is a lot more than verses that talks about fiqh, about hukum, whether it's halal, haram, how to perform this, whether it's okay or not. That is lesser than the number of verses that talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creations. SubhanAllah. 1,000 verses. Some scholars counted it and say it's about 1,000 verses of the Quran. That is more than number of verses in Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah contains 286 verses. 286 verses. Right? That is what? Less than almost 1/3 of that 1,000. So you need at least 3 Surah Al-Baqarah, right, to cover that number of verses that talk about Allah's creation. So Al-Quran is replete with verses that talk about Allah's creation. But sadly, right, some Muslims, they focus more on the hukum aspect, the legal aspect, whether this one touching between husband and wife validate wudu or not, tayammum how like this, whether pork is najis mughalladha or not, whether this and that or not. That's just a small part of the Quran actually. The majority of our ruling derives from hadith actually. Quran, yes, right? But majority of it comes from hadith. But the majority of the verses talks about Allah's creation. Allah wants us to contemplate about His creations, and from His creations, Allah wants us to appreciate His greatness. And once you appreciate His greatness, nothing can compare with Allah's beauty. You will be immersed, you will be absorbed, you will sing in the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't need to travel all these places on this earth just to find peace and solace and to relax your mind. You can find peace and solace and relax your mind through Al-Quran. That is the itminan, that is the peace that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give to whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give. Okay? Now, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to discover. But how to discover? If we just read, like I told you just now, it will not convey the sense of greatness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to have that sense of greatness to the point that, if you know really the meaning of some of the verses, the story behind those verses, the reality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creations, is not impossible that will cause tears to fall from our eyes. It's not impossible. Then we can really appreciate. We can feel our hairs rise on the back of our neck or whatever. Okay, feel our nerve tingling from understanding those verses. But how to do that? That is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this tool. And this tool is called science. Science is just a name, right? It is a tool for us to discover Allah's greatness. And science, right, actually encapsulate these 3 aspects. We observe a phenomena. For example, we observe a lightning striking from the cloud to the ground. That's our observation. And we just observe like that. Then we say, oh, okay, another lightning, that's it. We observe flowers that bloom, okay, from trees or whatever, beautiful flowers. We observe rain falling from the sky. We say it's a beautiful thing. Alhamdulillah. But is that it? No. We can do more. We can discover more. And so we should contemplate. Contemplate also entails us to think, to discover, to read up the works of others, and then to experiment. If something that is new that people have not discovered, anyway, do experiment. So these are the 3 main aspects of what humans call science. And through this, we discover Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't have, actually discovering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not necessarily comes from knowing a Muslim, does not come necessarily from reading the Quran. It can come also from observing Allah's creations. And you look at this verse. Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. Nabi Ibrahim salam, there was no predecessor for him. There was no prophet before him that he can learn from. But how did he know there is one God? From looking at the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in heavens and earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this in Surah Al-An'am verse 75. وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلِيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُوقِنِينَ. And thus did we, Allah showed Ibrahim the kingdom of the heavens and the earth. And Nabi Ibrahim looked up, observed the stars, the sun, the moon, and everything else. And he came to the conclusion that there must be one creator. Supreme creator that created and controls and direct all these things. And so that there are harmony. There is harmony in the heavens and the earth. And so Nabi Ibrahim became a mu'min. And that is why, right, partly the reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called Nabi Ibrahim as Ummah. Kana Ibrahimu ummatan qanitan hanifan lillahi walam yakun minal musyrikin. Allah mentions in Surah Al-Anbiya. And Ibrahim is an ummah. It is like a one ummah. Why? Because everything comes to him from his own work. He believed in Allah SWT from his observation, and thus Allah SWT gave him guidance and selected him and become the prophet. Not just a prophet, but the father of prophets. And from him came the Arabs and the Jews. And from him came the line of prophets on both sides. Nabi Ismail, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest of all prophets, from the line of the Arabs, and all the lines of the prophets right down to Nabi Isa alayhi salam, from the lines of the Jews, from his son Ishaq. He's the father of the prophets, Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. Why did he gain such greatness? He got the guidance by himself. He looked at the kingdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in heavens and earth, and concluded there is one God, and thus Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him guidance. And so that is what we should do, right? We should observe. When we go overseas or wherever we go, stop and observe small things. It's not just about going overseas to relax and just buy things, this and that. It's not just that. It is more of looking at the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to be more, to learn more, we need to have this field of knowledge, this subject that's been taught by Muslims, non-Muslims, from one generation to another. Now that is what we call as science. But what is science? Science is not an English word, it is a Latin word. Latin word meaning knowledge. So science actually, if you look at here, it is an accumulation of knowledge. Whatever knowledge accumulated by people, by human beings, from past to present to the future, everything has been accumulated. And we actually benefit from the knowledge accumulated from the people in the past. And then we add to that body of knowledge. That is science. Okay? We contribute. We are not just consumers, we should contribute. That is the work of people, whether you're a scientist or not, you contribute to knowledge, to the body of knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. And now the knowledge is so much, right? If let's say we just give you the knowledge, we can't really understand it all. We can't really remember it all. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us human beings this ability to organize things. We are the only creature, we are the only animal on this planet, besides being able to talk, that we are able to organize. You organize our structure, we organize our life. We even call a group of people as an organization. Because if you can't organize a group of people, then there'll be chaos. Just like certain government in this world. Chaos. So, that's why it's called organization, because everything has been organized. Who's the leader, who's the second in command, and you do this specialist thing, and you do that thing, you have specialization and so forth. So knowledge that's been accumulated need to be organized. And not just organized, must be organized systematically. Now this thing talk about that. So we said, okay, let's call this field subset of knowledge as what? Chemistry. Why? Because it deals with chemicals. It does not deal with organic bodies, human beings or animals. And those things that deal with human beings and animals and trees, whatever, we call them another field called biology. Now, if you talk about things that does not involve with chemistry, does not involve with the living things, then we call this subject, whatever you call it, let's call it physics. Okay, physics. And then we have subset of it. Now we have so many things talk about physics, and then, okay, now physics that talk about, let's say, atoms, nuclear energy. So we said, okay, nuclear physics. And we talk about biology. Biology that talks about, that involves with chemistry, right? How to make pills, this and that, right? And we say, okay, this is called biochemistry. So we have subset, and we can break it down further and further. This is called the classification of knowledge, and this is basically exactly what our Muslim scholars back then did when they organized systematically the knowledge that's been accumulated by people, whether it is so-called the knowledge of this world, right, or the knowledge of the revealed. That is our Quran and Sunnah. And that is why we have a lot of these subjects right now. We have usul fiqh, we have usul hadith, we have usul tafsir, we have mustalah hadith. All these terms did not exist during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And but then they came into being. People call tasawwuf, people call tawhid, people call fiqh. All these terms did not exist. But people accumulated knowledge and forced to organize it systematically and call it a name. So people who do not understand this sort of thing, they say this is all bid'ah. Because why? During the Prophet, there is no such thing called tasawwuf. There's no such thing as called as mazhab. So why you follow? You don't understand, right? The big picture. If you understand the big picture, then you know the necessity of organizing things. And these are just names. It won't affect your akidah. It will affect your ibadah at all. Okay, so that's number 2. So science is about accumulating knowledge, adding to that knowledge, and then you systematically organize that knowledge. Then after that, review that knowledge. Now, the knowledge has been accumulated, is human knowledge. This is not the knowledge of the revealed knowledge that Allah SWT sent down through Al-Quran and Hadith. Those knowledge cannot be reviewed. You cannot review on the necessity of performing Salat 5 times a day. You cannot review on the zakat rate of 2.5%. And you say, okay, 2.5%. See, Singapore government is going to raise the GST to whatever, how many, 9%. Let's increase the zakat rate also. Or let's decrease the zakat rate because we have to pay more to the government, so we pay less to the poor and needy. You cannot. You cannot review all those things. And we talk about divorce, we talk about marriage, and marriage has to be this and that. You must have wali, you must be a Muslim, this and that. You must have akad, and so they said, let's outdo with all this sort of thing. And then if I want you, you want me, let's marry together, and we just sign, okay, we live together as husband and wife. You cannot do that, because those are the things, right, knowledge that came from the heavens, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are not subjected to be reviewed. But other knowledge accumulated by human beings, this falls into the category of ijtihad. Right? Even though science is an ijtihad, it's something that you strive to understand. And you might be wrong. Scientists might be wrong. Right? Isaac Newton. Everyone knows who Isaac Newton is. The great scientist, the British great scientist of the 7th century that came up with the 3 Newton's laws, and came up with that wonderful equation. That equation involves with everything that is moving in this universe. They call it the Newton's gravitational equation. And it's a very simple equation. F is equal to G, M, another M, and 1m2 over R squared. It's a very simple one, a very short, less than 1 centimeter long equation. But that equation is so powerful that we can use to calculate how the rocket moves to the moon, how the satellite moves around the earth, how the earth moves around the sun, and so forth and so forth. Just one small equation. Now, how did he come to that formula? Something that Allah SWT has given that person, right? That spark of imagination, or that moment of aha, right? The eureka moment that Allah SWT has given. So he came out that. He came from Allah SWT, but through this person. But even that great person came out that one wonderful equation, the gravitational equation of Newton, right? That is also subjected to be reviewed. Because that equation cannot explain the movement of planet Mercury around the sun. And so it came to Albert Einstein, who reviewed that equation and adjusted it a little bit. So instead of r to the power of, or x to the power of 2, or r to the power of 2 for that denominator, then it would say r to the power of 2.00 something, something, something. Fine-tune it. So reviewed. So all things, all knowledge accumulated by human beings, beside the realm of this revealed knowledge that we believe in, Islamic knowledge, those things are subjected to be reviewed. Things that we believe to be true today, right? We don't say it may not be true tomorrow. No, it can be fine-tuned. It can be adjusted, right? Because there are exceptions to the rule. Your conclusion is based on experiments, and experiments are limited. There are a certain number of experiments that you can perform. Then he said, okay, my conclusion is this. But if should you perform more experiments, or if there are certain circumstances that beyond your thinking happen, then your conclusion might have to be adjusted. Not overthrown, but may adjusted. I'll give you an example, right? In 1930s, when Henry Ford created the internal combustion engine, cars were already created back then, but how to power the cars, Henry Ford created that internal combustion engine where you put in petrol a little bit and a little bit of oxygen or air, then you put some spark in it, and then it will cause explosion, and then the piston will go down, and then the piston will go up, and then power it, and then the piston will go up, and then the piston will go up. So this piston going up and down, whether it's one stroke or two strokes, or how many strokes, or we call it how many valves now, right, will cause things to turn, a rod to turn, and this rod turning you can translate through gears and so forth, right, to the power the wheel of the behind wheel or the front wheel of that car, whatever transport that you have. So you have the internal combustion engine, but you need fuel. Now, previously that fuel, when put in inside, you produce a lot of knocking sounds because there are explosions inside the engine. That's why it's called internal combustion engine. It combusts, right? Explosion, pam, boom, pam, boom. It's going to be very noisy, just like maybe Harley Davidson engine, just like that. Right? It's not smooth. So one chemist, I forgot his name, introduced a new chemical called lead, L-E-A-D. It's not lead metal, but they call it lead, right? Introduced this chemical inside accidentally found this chemical and put inside the fuel, and suddenly found the engine to run very smoothly without any of this jarring movement, right? Explosion, sound, and so forth. And so after that, all these oil companies start to put lead inside their petrol and then to run the cars. And lead becomes something that is very useful inside cars. And it went through 50 years, from 1930s to 1980s. And suddenly scientists started to realize that lead is poisonous for human beings. The fume that is being produced from that combustion containing lead can kill us, cause us to have cancer. And so people start to move away from lead. So you call it unleaded petrol. Right? Now, it took 50 years for people to discover that. And in these 50 years, we have harmed ourselves as humanity, and so many people already suffer from strange kinds of cancers. Only then that people realize. So there are things that is beyond the initial experiment. Right? This is the example that I shared with you. Right? We need to review things. All this worldly knowledge, right, accumulated by human beings from experiments, from observations, need to be reviewed and fine-tuned. But before we reach to that conclusion, before we fine-tune it, some things will cause us to suffer. And lead is gone, but new things are coming in, and we are suffering from it. Now, recently, they found out that a bottle of water, mineral water, here, right, contains so much plastics, and it's not surprising, because this, of course, is plastic, so there are a lot of plastic particles in it. And some of these plastic particles are quite large as the diameter of a strand of hair, and we ingest that plastic. What we do to us, we don't know, right? Because plastic is new. 70 years ago, there are no plastics. 100 years ago, zero plastic, because plastic comes from petrol, right? All this organic chemistry, when you burn up petrol and then produce what, this and that. So this is hydrocarbon, and we ingest plastics, and we eat fish and seafoods that contains a lot of plastics. People like to eat seafood, but did you know that seafood contains a lot of toxic things? They contain parasites, they contain plastics. We just say, oh, ikan bakar, sedap, oh, makan. But what's inside the ikan bakar? We don't know. And what will affect us? We don't know. Right? There is not sufficient time for us to really experiment and see what's going on to us. You look at lontong, right? Previously, lontong was boiled with banana leaves inside a metal canister, and then you have lontong and people eat. Okay, but now lontong has been bought inside plastics, and then the plastic they just poke the plastic. Right? After it's done, they just poke the plastic, and you think that poking the plastic will go away? No, you are forcing the plastic inside that lontong. You see? And then people eat, oh sedap, we need to eat lontong. But ingesting the rice with some particles of plastic. Now, will it do you harm? We don't know. It might be, it might not be. These are new things. Our body is not created to consume plastic. Plastic was not there, right, when our forefathers were living. So, we're not sure. We need to review. So, science is basically about accumulating knowledge, organize it, have somebody to specialize in a certain field, and then after that we review that knowledge and we fine-tune it. This is what science is all about. Now, relationship between science and Islam, benefits of science in Islam. Right? Like I told you just now. The first benefit in Islam is about us, our beliefs in Allah, our spiritual being. And that is to discover Allah, to find Allah, to feel Allah's greatness. That is the first benefit of science for Muslims. Of course, not for the non-Muslims. I'm talking about Muslims here. Second, right, we know who is Allah. But once we study science and we apply science to things around us, we can see Allah behind everything actually. And that is to strengthen our iman. Science, number 3, is to assist us to become better Khalifah of Allah. We use science to make our life better, right? To assist others. With science, we can have a better organization. Imagine if this madrasah still relies on typewriters. It'd be crazy, right? 100 students line up, want to pay fees, but the teacher has to write on a piece of paper, tear it and give it to the student, and the carbon copy keep. And then the carbon copy has to be transferred to somebody, and then somebody have to tabulate and how much and do accounting. It will be crazy. But then you have science, and science created technology, and that technology assists us to organize our life better and have more leisure in our life actually. Imagine if there's no science, and we have to still cook with kayu api. Or we still have to wash our clothes beside a polluted river, right? With our hand, washing like that, scrubbing the clothes. It's going to take a lot of our time. So science actually makes our life better. So, in other words, science can be used, or this accumulated knowledge can help us to become better Khalifah. Now, another thing, this is a trend, the trending word right now, fake news. Right, invented by Donald Trump, of all persons actually. Fake news was there, but it was not really prominent until he came into prominence, this Donald Trump, and wanted to become president, and he used fake news, and ultimately the fake news came to him. So, science can be used actually to dispel fake news, to unfake the fake news. Right? Now I'm inventing a new word. To unfake the fake news. Right? How to know? I'm going to give you some examples. Now, number 5 is science can be used to better understand our Sharia. Why Allah SWT wants us to do this thing? Why not that? There must be reason behind it. So how to do it? How to know? We use science. For example, why, right, the movement of Salah is like that, standing and then bowing, standing and then prostrating and then sitting. There must be reason. There are effects to our body, our heart, right, our muscle. So how do we know? We use science. Why should we eat animals, just animals who are slaughtered, not stunned, not shot at? Why just being slaughtered? That is the only way that we can eat a halal animal. Science. Why can't we eat frogs or snails? Why is it haram? We can say this haram, but science can help us to understand better. We do not say that, well, this is the only reason, this is the reason why we cannot eat. No, we don't say that. Right. Now, some people can use the reason why we do not eat pork because they said pork contains worms, parasites. And yes, pork meat contains parasite. This is one parasite, I always forget his name, Allahu Akbar. It's a letter T, right? This parasite can live, no, this parasite hatch inside the flesh of a pig, and then when ingested by another creature, then that parasite will grow and will borrow its way out of the flesh of that host animal, or human beings if you consume that pork, and it will lodge itself inside the brain or the stomach or the what do you call it, whatever place in our body, right? So how do we know? Because we use science. But that is not the main reason why Allah SWT forbids consumption of pork. We are people who say, Sami'na wa ta'na. Allah SWT says to do, we listen, we obey. But it does not stop us to question the wisdom, the hikmah, the reason behind it. And this is just part of the reason, not the only reason. Right? So part of the reason is this, right? But if you remove that reason, it does not mean that the pork can become halal. For example, you take pork and then you boil it to kill all the parasites. Does it make that pork that pork halal? No, it's going to be haram forever and ever. But we can appreciate why Allah SWT wants us to do this and that. So using science. Now I'll give you some examples. Then after that, we're going to open for discussion, question and answer if you have. If not, we're going to end this talk. Now, example for finding Allah SWT using science, that one I used already, right? The verse of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, he used his thing and then he found Allah SWT. And I give you the examples of quantum mechanics. I give you the example of this universe being created and so fine-tuned that there should be no doubt that this universe is actually really deliberately designed by an entity. So science show us the way. Whether we want to walk through the path and reach the end, that is discovering Allah SWT, or we abstain and we just say, oh, there's a path, and then we don't want to walk that path. Those are the positions taken by the scientists. They know there's a path, but they do not want to walk that path. So they do not reach the conclusion of finding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not yet called them to walk to the path. Right? Hopefully they will walk through the path and they will discover. You look at Stephen Hawking, for example. The scientist who just passed away, right? The one who's been crippled for so many years, 50 years so. He discovered a lot of things. He discovered about evaporating black holes, and he know that this universe is really fine-tuned. But he did not want to walk the path of discovering one God. For him, that God is beyond science. So he did not want to walk that path. So what he chose to believe? He chose to believe that, well, this universe is really fine-tuned, but actually we can employ the theory of evolution. So there are millions and millions and millions of universes out there. He called it multiverse. How many number of universe? He said it is 10 to the power of 500. At least. It's mind-boggling. 10 to the power of 1 is 10. 10 to the power of 2 is 100. 10 to the power of 3 is 1,000. 10 to the power of 4 is 1 million. Just number 4. Now 10 to the power of 100, whoa, finish, gone. 10 to the power of 6 is 1 million. 10 to the power of 7 is 10 million or 100 million. 10 to the power of 8 is 1 billion. 10 to the power of 10 is 1 trillion. This is 1 trillion. Then after trillion is what? Trillions and trillions and or like what Donald Trump said, billions and billions and billions. See? So many. 10 to the power of 500. Now, that's just his theory, his thinking. It might not be, it's not true or might not be true, we don't know, but he used that to justify the existence of this universe so fine-tuned. Because he said, if there are 10 to the 500 universe, surely there must be one universe that is so really fine-tuned for us to live in. That is actually the theory of evolution. There are so many combinations, permutations. One of it will surely fit us. If let's say we throw a dice 100 times, surely one time the number will come out number 1. Surely. That is just probability. So probability for him is that 10 to the power 500, there must be one universe that is us. So that is his thinking. That is his decision. He did not want to walk that path of guidance. So that's his choice. Too bad for him. Right? He's dead already. Now, let's finding Allah. Strengthen the Iman. This is where we can use science to understand the verses of the Quran better. Okay? And Allah SWT sent down all these sent down the verses of the Quran regarding the creations of heavens and earth for us to think and to really understand and look from a fresh perspective. Look at this. This is in Surah Ar-Rahman. Allah SWT says in Surah Rahman, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran, Khalaqa al-Insan. He has created the man, Allamahul Bayan. He has taught him speech and intelligence. Number 2. Number 3. So I start with verse number 3. He has created man. How did Allah SWT created man? And then you look down at verse number 14, Allah SWT mentions some aspect of his creation. How did he created man? And he said he created man from a sounding clay like unto pottery. خلق الإنسان والحب تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار. Salsal is a sounding clay, kalfakhar, like a pottery. Now, how did Allah SWT create us? Allah SWT gives these characteristics of clay that Allah used to create the first human being, that is Nabi Adam alayhi salam. How did Allah SWT create it? Now, using science, right? Some scientists, right, have discovered that this clay is called montmorillonite clay. This clay is very unique, right? It can absorb water, and it has in between its molecule spaces that it can attract the nucleotides of RNA, ribonucleic acid. So this RNA is useful to build DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. So from that is a messenger. RNA is like a messenger DNA that built up DNA. And it started, they said they can replicate this thing, right, using the right amount of energy and the right amount of ammonia and other chemicals, and they can replicate the they call it primitive RNA from a clay. So it doesn't mean that Allah SWT created Nabi Adam Salam from this clay. No, right? It is just an example that from science we can really appreciate that, yes, you see, DNA can be replicated inside the clay. So it's not impossible that Allah SWT created us from clay, and maybe from other creatures from clay, we're not sure, right? But that is clay. So how? We know about these things from science. So we can see the truth of Al-Quran, right? The beauty of Allah SWT word. So that's number 2. Then Allah SWT said what speech? Allamahul Bayan. Allah SWT taught us speech, intelligence. That is the realm of those studying psychology, those studying those neuroscientists, right? How we have the ability to think beyond other creatures. You know, anthropologists, let me share with you, right? Anthropologists found out that about, we human beings, or so-called Homo sapiens, right, have been around for at least 130,000 years. You know, they found skeletons, fossils of human beings, as the scientific name is called Homo sapiens, or just sapiens, right? That aged 130,000 years ago. How do you know it? They use carbon dating, they use other techniques of dating bones. But something happened 70,000 years ago. Suddenly, Homo sapiens have this cognitive ability, and they call this period as a cognitive revolution. Suddenly, human beings have this cognitive ability, and with that cognitive thinking ability, Homo sapiens managed to spread out from African continent, move to the European continent, defeated another creature called the Neanderthals, right? Homo neanderthalis over there, right? And then spread out all over the world, and suddenly 20,000 years later, maybe 10,000, 15,000 years later, 50,000 years ago, the first human being arrived in Australia. They walk all the way from Africa, move to the Middle East, to the Central Asia, move down to Southeast Asia, and move down to Indonesia, and then somehow or other they managed to build a raft that can cross from the southern tip of Indonesia, the island nearest to the Australia, and then they moved to Australia, and then human beings started to populate Australia, and from that time onwards, when human beings arrived in Australia, all species, most of the species of native Australians back then, right, they went extinct. Because, sad to say, we are the most destructive animal on this planet Earth. We are the most destructive creature on this. Wherever we go on this planet Earth, we bring destruction. We destroy things. We destroy forests. We disrupt ecosystem. We created this so-called climate change. There are so many things that we do that will harm us. But we don't care, because we're being powered by greed. We are being powered by wanting to have more. So this is Homo sapiens. Right? So whatever it is, right? We have intelligence. How did it come to us? That is the realm of neuroscientists. How do we think this and that? Allah SWT just give He has taught people how to talk and have intelligence. Then Allah moves on to the realm of astronomy. Look at the sun and the moon. They follow the course exactly computed. You can really calculate the exact movement of all the planets. That's why we can send this spacecraft all the way from Earth to Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And beyond Neptune, now that spacecraft Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 is pushing through outside the envelope of solar system. And they can calculate precisely. And there's one time where they want to have that spacecraft flying over flying over Neptune, right, to capture a picture of Neptune and its moon, Miranda. So flying over the north pole of Uranus, flying over the north pole of Uranus, right? But that movement needs to be executed to the very precise time that if it missed by just 1 second, that spacecraft we lost in the vastness of the space. So how people can really calculate to that precise 1 second? Because everything can be computed. You know this movement of the earth, the moon around the earth, right? If you want to really calculate the exact position of the earth to the point that you can shoot a laser to the exact spot on the moon, yes, you can do it. You can use calculations. You can use equations, and that equation is just about 10,000 equations long. You just need about 10,000 equations. But of course, humanly it's not possible. You need to use computer to calculate that. But 10,000, you can. The one that we use to calculate whether there is anak bulan atau tidak, right? Whether we can observe the crescent or not, or the start of our fasting month, whatever. That calculation just need, if you want to calculate, you can calculate by hand. Just need about, let's say, 150 lines of equations. That's not much. It take about, if by hand, it takes about half a day to calculate. That is mathematics. Okay. Now Allah said you can calculate. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about the herbs and the trees. Then Allah moves to those studied plants and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all these trees and the herbs, right? And they all bow to Allah, sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us back to the heavens. فَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised the heaven high and made it into balance. Balance is harmony. There is harmony in the solar system. Things move without colliding each other. And you know, this one scientist called Kepler, he calculated the ratio of Jupiter to Saturn to Uranus and Earth and Venus, and he found it to be almost the same like harmony of the sun. Okay. I thought it's 4 o'clock. 2 to 3 or 2 to 4? 2 to 3. I was told 2 to 4. That's why I take my time, sweet time. Alright, okay, thank you. So, I skip that. Sorry, misinformation. Another fake news. Okay. Now, becoming better Khalifa. This is the contribution of Muslims. That is called Ulubir Observatory, right, in Uzbekistan. Created by this Muslim astronomer Ulugh-Beer, who was a descendant of Genghis Khan, right? And this really one of the greatest observatory created by past scientists to calculate the position of stars. This is another contribution of science to make us better Khalifa. You look at this, right? These are the pillars of a palace called Al-Hamra in Spain, in Cordoba, right? If you look at really at this, the plate here, I zoom in, you can see these pillars here. In between them, there is this very small, thin layer of some disc. Okay, you can't really see it. I went there and I saw it. It's a metal disc. It means that the pillars, and then they put the disc, and then they build the arch over the pillars. Okay. Then I asked, why you have this sort of this? Actually, right, they know, these builders of Al-Hamra Palace, why it can last until now from the year 1000 AD to now 2000, is more than 1000 years, right? 1000 years of building still standing beautifully like that. Earthquakes come and earthquakes went, and then nothing happened to that palace. Why? Because of that disc. Because when you put that disc, right, the earth shakes. But if you have that disc, that shaking of the pillars will not pull the arch to the left and right and cause cracks on the ceilings. So the ceiling will remain intact, only the pillars move. That's how they preserve, right, the strength of that building. They just put a plate. How do they do it? They think about science, right? And this basically what modern builders did when they built bridges. Look at this. If you observe bridge, MRT, whatever bridge, you see that it's not connected between the beam and the pillar here. There is a small gap here, and they put metals. And you always wonder, why do you put metal there? You can just put everything on it, just like Lego, you put everything on it. It'll be more strong, right? But you put a metal there, a small plate. This is to help any vibration, expansion of the bridge and whatever, so that there'll be no cracks. So if there's any vibration from the earth, only the pillar will shake, but the beams will remain. So there'll be no cracks. Now who contribute this? Islam. Muslims, they built this thing at Al-Hamra, and it lasts for 1000 years, right? And we are trying to do the same for the modern architectures they put. Of course, they have this better design rather than those 1000 years ago design, but the principle remains the same. This is how you use science to be a better Khalifa on this planet Earth. Now, dispelling fake, unfake the fake news. Have you seen these pictures before? Any one of you? Do you believe that this picture is true? Look at this. Have you seen these pictures before? Right? Do you think that this is true? And they said this is the people of the ant. And they found it in Saudi Arabia, in Rubu al-Khali, or the empty quarter. And those are the archaeologists trying to measure. And people say, wow, yeah, so there are giants walking back then. And it's true that past people are giants. Now, if you look at science, this cannot happen. Why? Because the taller you are, right, the taller you are, the heavier you be. And if the heavier you are, right, you need stronger backbones. And to have a stronger backbones, you're going to have backbones like us, where it's segmented like that. You have the thoracic 1, thoracic 2, and so forth and so forth. Because this thing will cause the structure to become weak. You need to have one solid spine to support a heavy weight. Imagine you have a building with all these things segmented spine. The whole thing will collapse. And so, by virtue of calculations, right, and science, giants taller than 3 meters, walking giants taller than 3 meters cannot exist. Yeah, if they exist, they cannot live long. They will surely stumble. And that's why you have those giant freaks, right, walking. But when they walk, they have to walk on sticks, because their spine really cannot support their weight. So it's impossible actually to have it. And so when we talk about giants in the past, it's actually those based on Israelites. The Jews created those stories. You can't find it in the Quran. You can't find it in an authentic hadith. And there is a hadith, yes, it's inside Sahih Muslim. Abu Hurairah said that Nabi Adam alayhi salam was 60 cubic tall. Now 1 cubit is like that. Okay. Now 60 of that is equivalent to, I calculated, is about 10 stories high. Nabi Adam was 10 stories high. According to science, he cannot exist, because all the trees are small. And we cannot sustain the foods to be taken from all these things. Even you have the giant of the dinosaurs, they're walking on 4 legs, not on 2 legs. Tyrannosaurus walk on 2 legs, but they are small compared to the giants, other giants. Right? So, this thing by science cannot exist. But then how can you have all these pictures? Now, actually, these pictures are all these pictures actually came from a contest organized by National Geographic to see who can create the best Photoshop pictures. And this picture won second prize. It's a Photoshop, alright? It's not true. They just take a picture of some skeleton and then they shrink size some human beings and then they paste it there and people start to believe, wow, it's true. It's fake, right? So how do we know? First we use science, and then once we know science, this cannot be true, then we find out why this thing happens. Then people start to find out, well, this is just a... Even National Geographic said this is just a contest because people start to believe this is the truth. So don't really easily believe in whatever pictures that you can see, because it can be easily photoshopped now. You look at this. From the giants to the smallest. This is called the Atta skeleton. They found in a place called La Noria. Okay? They found it about 40 years ago. Isn't it strange, this creature? It's not being studied by scientists. Right? They have a brain. No, they have the shape of the head like an alien. And the rib, they're just 10 ribs, whereas we have 11 ribs. Right? But all the bones are simply okay. So some people believe this is actually an alien. Some said, or if you ask the Malays, they say, yeah, biasa, tuyul. Then how do you know tuyul have ribs like us? If they have ribs like us, then surely they are human beings. Right? So what is this actually? So science came in and dispelled all this untruth, and they discovered that this is actually a fetus of a human being. A deformed fetus. Right? They were born, still means dead. Okay, of course, this deformation caused the skull to grow like a corn and then missing some. It's just a deformed fetus, not just another creature. So dispel that notion. No, this has been going for 5 to 6 years. This skeleton, and a lot of stories have come off. You can just Google and look at YouTube. And it's one in La Noria. La Noria is one of the places, some people say the scariest place on planet Earth, because it's really abandoned in the middle of Atacama Desert. tombstones being turned over and so forth, and a lot of stories. Anyway, chain message. Have you ever received this message before? Right? The moon will circle around the Kaaba, and then blue line, blah 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 blah. West Malaysia time, Singapore time, and 3:25 a.m. Mecca time. What? And people start to believe, wow, see, malam ini, the moon will tawaf around the Kaaba, and it's not happened for 10 million. How do you know 10 million years? Have you lived that long? No. Right? So basically, this is a fake. And how you know? Because science said you cannot have moon tawaf around the Kaaba because the moon will fall on Earth. Because the moon is bigger than the Kaaba. The moon is bigger than Saudi Arabia. And how do you want to have something that's so big? It's like you asking, right? You trying to do tawaf around an ant. You can't. You just move over the ant. So science can just easily dispel all this change message. So we have this. If you have this message, just tell them please stop, don't spread, because it's been going on for years and years. I'm tired of receiving this message again and again and again and again. I want to vomit this time we receive this message. Another one is about the sun's rising from the west. Because why? Because of planet Mars. Now, people who doesn't know these things say, well, it's true. But science actually say that no, it's not true, because Mars, when Mars is called retrograde motion, it does not mean that the sun will rise from the west. And it does not mean that this retrograde motion will also happen on planet Earth. How do you know? Using astronomy. Right? So science is very important tool, right, to dispel all these fake news. Now, last one is a better understanding of Sharia. You use science, like I told you just now, to understand why Allah SWT asks us to do something. Why, let's say we have to cut during sembelih ini, right? We have to cut the carotid arteries and also the jugular veins. Not we cut the trachea, and esophagus, but with that we cut through the veins. So those are the 5. I can think of the 5 benefits of science with regards to Muslims and Islam, inshallah. So I end here. I'm sorry, I see the time. I'm really, really sorry, because I thought it's for 2 hours. Ultimately, it's for 1 hour. You didn't tell me earlier. No? Is it my fault? It's my fault, yes. All right, thank you very much. I end with Tasbih Kafara and Suratul Asr. Assalamu alaikum.
It's Tasbih Kafara and Suratul As. But we hope that every one of you enjoyed the following session.